Every year, 14 NFL teams make the postseason. Some expect to be there, qualifying for the postseason as it's a non-negotiable. Others haven't been there in a very long time, but maybe this year will be their year. And in today's video, we're going to go over every playoff team of the 2024 NFL season and their last appearance in the postseason. Now, of course, we have to start with the 1 seeds, and we're going to choose to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Honestly, they're probably just the least surprising team that made the playoffs this year, but they are on the hunt for that ever-elusive three-peat for the first time in NFL history. Despite a less than ideal season offensively, the Chiefs still qualified as the number 1 seed in the AFC with a 15-2 record. Their only real loss came against MVP frontrunners Josh Allen and the Bills, but that already seems long forgotten. And I mean, as Super Bowl champions, we all know what happened with their last time in the postseason with, well, they won the whole damn thing. They ran the table for a second straight season to go back-to-back for the first time since Tom Brady managed it with the Patriots back in 2004. The Chiefs went all the way to overtime against the San Francisco 49ers before Patrick Mahomes found a wide-open Mecole Hardman in the end zone to send the confetti flying. It's the second time Andy Reid and the Chiefs have beaten Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers in the Super Bowl in 5 years, but if the Chiefs make it back again in February of 2025, this time there will be a new challenger on the opposite sideline. Kansas City has now made 9 straight playoff appearances and 10 in the last 11 years with Andy Reid in charge. Patrick Mahomes has never missed the playoffs, and Kansas City has appeared in 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 seasons, winning 3 titles. And just as the Patriots did, the Chiefs have been winning for too long now in the eyes of the neutrals. They've become the villain to every other franchise's fan base, and that's when you truly know you're on a dynasty run. Now, as we flip to the NFC side though, the 1 seed happens to be for a team that it's the first time in franchise history they've ever had that seed, with that being the Detroit Lions. Despite plenty of adversity on the injury report in 2024, Detroit still rode through opponents week after week and dominated the Minnesota Vikings on the final day of the regular season for that all-important first-round bye. The Lions are now looking to make it a Super Bowl run in their greatest era of their entire franchise. And as we all know, well, their last Super Bowl appearance, it's never happened. There are only 4 NFL teams who have never made it to the Super Bowl, with the other 3 being the Cleveland Browns, Houston Texans, and Jacksonville Jaguars. Detroit made it to their 2nd ever NFC Championship appearance just last season, coming agonizingly close to their first Super Bowl against San Francisco, with the only other time they've competed in the conference title game was back in 1992 in a 41-10 loss to the Washington Redskins. It's been a long time coming for Detroit, and I mean, right now they look like the absolute team to beat in the entire NFL. I mean, there's never been a more promising path to the big game, and the entire city is rallying behind this team. And now we're going to stick with the NFC right now, as the Philadelphia Eagles made the Super Bowl just 2 seasons ago, where they were cut down by the Kansas City Chiefs. Philly had an incredible season in 2022, going 14-3 in the regular season, qualifying as the number 1 seed, and then conceding just 14 points in total in playoff games against the New York Giants and 49ers. They went into the Super Bowl as very worthy competitors and even slight favorites against the Chiefs, as it looked like they might be able to pull it off with a 10-point lead going into halftime, but Kansas City did what they do best, and eventually a controversial holding call on James Bradbury set the Chiefs up to close the game out. I'm still not really convinced that it was holding or that it should have been called at that moment, but the Chiefs came out on top and the Eagles left empty-handed. Even then, the Philly special wasn't that long ago, so Eagles fans have at least felt the taste of victory in recent years. The NFC's 3 seed, the Tampa Bay Bucks, are enjoying a new era with quarterback Baker Mayfield, who has a pretty remarkable 2024 season, as he's earned every bit of that contract they paid him so far, throwing for 4,500 passing yards and 41 touchdowns. And I mean, they may have waited pretty much till the last game to win the division, but now that they did, it's been 4 years in a row that they've won the NFC South. They've won 2 wildcard games in the past 3 seasons, but haven't made it past the divisional round since the 2020 season, which turned out to be a pretty special year for the franchise. Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, stepped away from the New England Patriots for the first time in 20 years to sign with the Bucks. Many believed he was too old and incapable of winning a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick, and it took him 1 season to prove all those theories wrong, bringing a Super Bowl to Tampa Bay in the very first season he was spent on the team. He remains the only quarterback to beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, something Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, and Jimmy Garoppolo have all failed to do. Now, the 4 seed in the NFC is the LA Rams, a team that has found pretty miraculous consistency under generational coach Sean McVay. I mean, honestly, despite the insane turnover of roster and coaches, Les Snead and Sean McVay keep finding ways to have this team winning and in the postseason. They went all in on the 2021 season, having acquired Matthew Stafford as the quarterback McVay believed that would take them all the way. He was finally out of Detroit, a team that was seen as never having a chance to win a Super Bowl, with Jared Goff going the other way as part of the deal. I mean, honestly, now looking back on that trade, it's kind of crazy to see that, well, it's going to end up paying off for both teams, especially if the Lions can get the job done this year. Then both of them are going to have won the Super Bowl with that trade going down. Stafford reached career highs across the board with the help of a historic year from Cooper Kupp and what was one of the most all-in to win a Super Bowl attempts. The Rams made major trades for key players, sending away the majority of their draft capital to win it all right then. I mean, well, to simply put it, it worked. With the help of a stacked roster including Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, and standouts Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Andrew Whitworth and company, the Rams won it all at the first attempt, beating the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in a thoroughly competitive game put to bed by Aaron Donald with a masterclass in the dying moments. He called game, the Rams ran out winners, and several legends of the game got well-deserved rings in what was quite the feel-good Super Bowl for many, just not the Bengals. I mean, the fact that they practically blew that roster up, getting a shot of expensive contracts with the likes of Aaron Donald and Andrew Whitworth retired, and still only missed the playoffs for one season before getting right back in the mix is astounding. The Rams have one of the best front offices and coaching staffs in the NFL, and they're challenging once again here in 2024. And now the 5th seed team that's basically in the playoffs right now and has the highest win total of a 5th seed ever in NFL history wasn't even expected to have more than 6.5 wins coming into this season. That was of course until Kevin O'Connell flexed his quarterback whisperer skills and turned Sam Darnold from a failed journeyman quarterback into one of the league's most efficient and effective passers. Minnesota hasn't even played in a Super Bowl since 1977. I mean, in fact, they made 4 Super Bowls in the 70s, but failed to win any of them. Quarterback Frank Tarkenton led 3 of those Super Bowls, including the most recent, the 77 game against John Madden's Oakland Raiders at the Rose Bowl Stadium in Pasadena. Tarkenton outthrew Ken Stabler of the Raiders in that game too, but he also threw 2 interceptions against a tremendous Oakland defense led by the likes of Jack Tatum and Ted Hendricks. The Raiders won 32-14 with a great performance from running back Clarence Davis on the ground, posting 135 yards. Minnesota fell short for the 4th time in recent memory and has now gone nearly 50 years without making it back. They're certainly overdue, and Kevin O'Connell might be the coach to get them back to the big game. And I mean, honestly, another team that completely outperformed their expectations this season is the Washington Commanders, who are now going to be in the playoffs for a long time during the Jaden Daniels era. Dan Quinn has assembled a very talented coaching staff and a winning roster with the perfect blend of veteran leadership and young talent. I mean, hell, even if they maybe had some less injuries during the year and Jaden Daniels wasn't hurt for part of the games too, this team might have actually won the NFC East also. Their last Super Bowl appearance though comes on January 26, 1992. The Redskins shut out Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas in the first half, going into the break with a 17-0 lead. While the Bills rallied to score 24 second half points, it wouldn't be enough, and the Mark Rippon-led Redskins won their 3rd Super Bowl in less than 10 years. Each of those with different quarterbacks too, with Joe Theismann winning the first, Doug Williams winning the second, and Rippon helping them get to the third. While it has been a long time since they've played in the big game, the now renamed Commanders still have one of the richest Super Bowl histories in the NFL. As for the Green Bay Packers, who enter the 2024 playoffs as the 7th and final seed in the NFC. The Packers have also played in 5 Super Bowls, the same number as the Commanders, only they've won 4 of theirs, with the only loss coming in the late 90s against the Denver Broncos. It was the Green Bay Packers who won both Super Bowl 1 and 2 in the 66 and 67 season, both led by Bart Starr. They'd then have to wait until the 1996 season to win it again with Brett Favre, who led them back the following year, only to come up short against John Elway's Broncos. Then it was Aaron Rodgers in the 2010 season, winning them their most recent Super Bowl title as he beat Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers in that game. And while he claimed a well-earned ring, Aaron Rodgers' career in Green Bay then featured so many close encounters, only to fall short of ever making the big game again. Some call it an NFC Championship game curse, losing 4 of his 5 games in the conference title game, a tied NFL record with Donovan McNabb and Steve Young. As we flip to the AFC now, we have to start with the Buffalo Bills, who just, have come so close in recent years, but as we all know, Patrick Mahomes has been the man standing in the way of them ever getting past the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen and the Bills have failed to overcome the Chiefs in the playoffs up until this point, but 2024 might be the year, having already beaten them in the regular season. Buffalo has arguably the most painful Super Bowl history of any team in the league, losing all 4 of their trips to the title game in 4 consecutive years. The most recent appearance was the 1994 season, the 4th and final straight Super Bowl loss for the franchise. In that game, it was Jimmy Johnson's Dallas Cowboys that took them out, led by quarterback Troy Aikman, in a repeat of the loss they suffered the previous year. I mean, honestly, that Dallas Cowboys team was stacked, and there was no denying that, but the Buffalo Bills had a roster loaded with talent also in multiple Hall of Famers, including Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, and quarterback Jim Kelly. Aikman beat them twice after losing the first to a very mediocre Jim Holster with New York Giants and Mary Rippon the following year with Washington, as they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row and had 4 losses. And now I know that's gotta be painful, but maybe, just maybe, this is the year that Josh Allen can finally get them back there and win the whole thing. The 3-seeded Ravens, though, have been on the cusp of another Super Bowl appearance in recent years, making the AFC Championship game in 2023 with a chance to overthrow the defending champion Chiefs. MVP Lamar Jackson came close, but the Chiefs pulled away to bring an end to a sensational Ravens season. The last time they made the Super Bowl, they won it, and along with the Bucs, they're the only team to have played in multiple Super Bowls and won them all. And as crazy as it sounds too, it didn't take them long to get to the Super Bowl after just being expanded to in the NFL in 1996. In just their 5th season as an organization, they went out and beat the historic New York Giants to claim their first Lombardi. 12 years later, they did it again with one of the most aggressive defenses the NFL had ever seen, spearheaded by the iconic Ray Lewis. Super Bowl 48, otherwise known as the Harbaugh Bowl, saw Ravens head coach John Harbaugh go head-to-head with his own brother Jim Harbaugh as the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. John and the Ravens won that game when the power eventually came back on, with the lights out for 34 minutes in the Superdome, causing play to be suspended. It's one of the more memorable Super Bowls in recent memory for several reasons, but the Ravens claimed it 34-31, with Joe Flacco being named Super Bowl MVP. Unsurprisingly too, it was the first time in NFL history 2 brothers had faced off as head coaches in the Super Bowl, and it's extremely unlikely to ever happen again between 2 brothers in the future. Now, the 4-seeded Houston Texans are the only other team, just like the Lions, that have yet to play in a Super Bowl game. Much like the Lions, they are chasing to get there, and who knows, with CJ Stroud now at the helm, they may have a chance. I mean, we've got to cut them some slack too. They're one of the NFL's youngest franchises, not being established until 2002. Like, I mean, some teams have been chasing a Super Bowl for 50 years, so the Texans have got some time at least. 5 playoff games since making their NFL debut. They are currently 0-5 in the divisional round. Their most recent trip came just last season off the back of Stroud's sensational rookie year, while they fell short in a 34-10 dominant win at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. The momentum of that season has seen a tremendous success, and the Texans might be a postseason regular for quite some time with their new franchise quarterback. Moving on to the 5th seed, Jim Harbaugh is back and has immediately taken a 5-11 team back to the playoffs. One of the best rebuilders of a generation, Jim Harbaugh has created a winning culture everywhere he's been, and the Chargers are now the most recent stop. They went 11-5 this year without a standout wide receiver or running back, with an aging defense and a lot of gaps in the roster supposedly needing to be filled. And who knows, give it another couple years and Jim Harbaugh might be able to get Justin Herbert to the Super Bowl game, because I mean, at the end of the day, do you even remember who the last quarterback was that led the Chargers to the Super Bowl? It was Stan Humphries in the 1994 season. Coming up against Steve Young in the San Francisco 49ers, Humphries spent 5 seasons as the Chargers quarterback, with that 1994 campaign being the peak. Unfortunately for him, Steve Young put on an absolute show in that Super Bowl, throwing 6 touchdowns, an NFL record that still stands today. The Dynasty 49ers won that game 49-26, leaving Bobby Ross's Chargers empty-handed. And then we have the Steelers, who have been one of the most consistent teams in the NFL at making the playoffs. Like, I mean, Mike Tomlin just refuses to allow a losing season, and the Steelers are in the playoffs again under unlikely circumstances. The comeback of Russell Wilson has seemed quite the story in Pittsburgh, despite Justin Fields starting the season, and while the end of the regular season campaign wasn't what they wanted it to be, the Steelers are still a very tough franchise to face in cold weather football with everything on the line. Pittsburgh is tied with the 2nd most Super Bowl appearances in history with 8, the last of which was the game we mentioned earlier against Aaron Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers had won the Super Bowl just 2 years earlier with that stunning final drive against the Arizona Cardinals, but couldn't repeat it against 2010 in Aaron Rodgers. Mike Wallace and Hines Ward played a great game, but Green Bay stole the show and the Steelers lost for only the second time in 8 appearances. And finally, the 7th seeded Denver Broncos make their first playoff appearance since their last Super Bowl appearance, winning it all with Peyton Manning at Super Bowl 50. Manning was headed towards retirement, but claimed his second ring with the very help of a very talented supporting cast and an insane defense led by Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. That defense caused absolute chaos for Cam Newton and the Panthers in the Super Bowl, and the Broncos won 24-10. Unlike the Rams and Bucks, that rebuild took them a long time, and Denver went 8 long years without getting close to a postseason appearance until now. Under the guidance of Sean Payton and with rookie quarterback Bo Nix finally looking like the answer to the franchise's quarterback problems, the Broncos are back in the playoffs. Their ceiling though, right now nobody really knows, but I definitely wouldn't write them off at all. And if you want to see what NFL players think exactly about Sam Darnold, then click this video right here.